I was looking at the numbers for this deep dive, and I kept coming back to this one specific paradox. Imagine walking into, say, the Bellagio in Las Vegas. You sit down at a slot machine, put in $100, you pull the lever, lights flash, bells ring, and you win 1,000,000 chips.
Sounds like a pretty good Tuesday night.
It does, right? Right up until you go to the cashier cage to cash out, and they just look at you and say, "Oh, sorry. These chips, they're just for fun. You can't actually turn them back into money. Have a nice day."
That is the definition of a nightmare for any actual gambler. You're describing a system with all of the cost and absolutely zero financial reward.
Exactly. And yet that exact nightmare scenario is a business model generating hundreds of millions of dollars a year. We are talking about the social casino industry, and specifically, we are unpacking the 2024 annual report for DoubleDown Interactive.
It's a fascinating document. This is their Form 20F, filed with the SEC for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024. And you're right, on the surface, it looks like a money printing machine. But when you actually read the risk factors, and I mean really read them, not just skim the headers, this company is in a very, very precarious position.
It reads like a thriller. I mean, you've got this Korean-owned company with a massive U.S. footprint, making an absolute fortune from a very specific type of user,
Yeah.
while simultaneously fighting a multi-front war against regulators, state attorneys general, and even their own business partners.
It's a classic case of high risk, high reward. The mission for this deep dive is really to figure out if DoubleDown is a tech giant masterfully navigating a pivot, or if they're just standing on a trapdoor that's about to spring open.
So let's start with the money. Because when I dug into the key operating metrics section of the report, the first thing that hit me was just the sheer efficiency of their monetization.
Yep.
They are not trying to get a dollar from everyone. They're hunting whales.
Whales is absolutely the industry term, though I think in the report they politely refer to them as VIPs. But the math is undeniable. You have to look at the pair conversion rate.
Right. I highlighted this. In 2024, that rate was 6.7%. So, okay, let's just do the math on that. If you have a stadium full of 100 people playing DoubleDown Casino, 93 of them are freeloaders. They are just there for the free chips, the lights, the sounds. They never open their wallets.
Which is fine, by the way. Those free players, they populate the ecosystem, they make the game feel alive. But the business relies entirely on those other 7 people. And those 7 people are spending an astronomical amount of money.
The metric that just blew my mind was ARPDAU, average revenue per daily active user. It was about $1.30 in 2024. Now, to the uninitiated, $1.30 sounds like spare change. It sounds like a bad cup of coffee.
But you have to remember that $1.30 is an average spread across every single user, including the 93% who pay absolutely zero.
Exactly. That's what I mean. If the vast majority take nothing, then for that average to be $1.30, the whales aren't just spending a few bucks here and there. They're spending hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars a month on virtual chips that they can never, ever cash out.
It's like running a luxury gym where 93% of the members walk in for free, use all the equipment, shower, and then leave. But the 7% who pay, well, paying $10,000 a month to subsidize the electricity for everyone else.
And what's interesting is the trend line in the report. The total number of paying users actually went down from 2023 to 2024. So the crowd is getting smaller.
It is, but the conversion rate went up. That tells me their algorithm is just getting smarter. They are getting better and better at identifying exactly who those high spenders are and keeping them engaged. They're squeezing more juice out of a slightly smaller lemon.
But that intensity, that brings us to the product itself. How do you keep someone spending that kind of money? DoubleDown has a very specific strategy here. They aren't shotgunning 50 different apps into the App Store, are they?
No, and that's a really distinct deviation from how a lot of mobile game studios operate. DoubleDown uses an all-in-one strategy. They funnel almost all their traffic into the main DoubleDown Casino app.
I saw the stat on this, that one single app accounted for 88.6% of their total revenue in 2024. That is a terrifying amount of concentration.
It's the definition of all your eggs in one basket. I mean, if Apple or Google decides to delist that one app for some reason, the company's revenue essentially evaporates overnight.
And speaking of Apple and Google, we have to talk about the platform tax. Because before DoubleDown even sees a dime of that whale money, the gatekeepers get their cut.
Oh, yeah. Roughly 30% of gross receipts. It's a massive line item. When a player spends $100 on chips, Apple or Google just takes $30 immediately. DoubleDown gets the remaining $70, and from that, they have to pay for development, marketing, server costs, everything else.
So the margins are already under pretty serious pressure, which means the content inside the app has to be incredibly sticky. It can't just be, generic slots. And this is where the three pillars of content come in. I found this part of the report really clarifies why they are a market leader.
Right. You can't just have random spinning wheels. You need a whole ecosystem.
So pillar one is the in-house stuff. They have a studio in Seoul making their own games. Standard stuff. Pillar two is from their parent company, W Games.
Which is important to note, W Games, or DG, owns about 67% of DoubleDown. They're the controlling shareholder. That relationship gives DoubleDown exclusive access to DG's library of over 400 titles. It's a huge content pipeline that doesn't cost them nearly as much as developing from scratch.
But pillar three, this is the one that really matters. This is the one that hooks the players. International Game Technology, or IGT.
The heavy hitters.
For listeners who don't frequent casinos, can you explain why IGT is such a big deal? Why does DoubleDown pay licensing fees for this?
Because IGT is the real deal. If you walk into a physical casino in Macau or Las Vegas, you see IGT machines. You see Cleopatra, Wolf Run, Megabucks. These are just iconic brands in the gambling world.
So it's all about authenticity.
Precisely. If you're a player who loves the Cleopatra machine at your local casino and you search for a slots app, you don't want a knockoff called Queen of the Nile. You want the official IGT game with the official math and the official sound effects. DoubleDown licenses that IP.
And the report talks about porting. It's not just a picture of the game.
No. It's a deep technical integration. They take the underlying math models, the volatility, the hit frequency, all of it, from the land-based machines and port them to the mobile app. It gives the app a Vegas floor credibility that keeps those whales coming back for more.
Okay, so we have the cash cow. We have the content. But clearly, DoubleDown knows that relying 100% on this social play in the U.S. is risky, because they made a pretty significant purchase recently.
The SuperNation acquisition.
Right. This closed in October 2023, but 2024 was the first full year of operations. And this isn't social casino anymore. This is iGaming.
Right. And that distinction is absolutely critical. Social casino is fake chips, real money cost. iGaming is real money bet, real money win. It's actual online gambling.
But you can't really do that in most of the U.S.
No, which is why SuperNation operates in Europe. We're talking Sweden, the UK, Malta. These are jurisdictions where online gambling is federally regulated and clearly legal.
It feels like a hedge, like they're buying a lifeboat in Europe just in case the ship starts sinking in America.
It is absolutely a diversification play, but it's also a play for a completely different demographic. Have you looked at SuperNation's flagship game, Duels?
Yeah, with a Z. It looked, I don't know, weirdly complicated for a slot game.
That's the whole point. It gamifies the gambling. You aren't just sitting there spinning. You have an avatar, you cast spells, you engage in player versus player combat. It's designed to capture a younger generation that grew up on video games and finds standard slot machines kind of boring.
And financially, I mean, is it moving the needle at all?
In 2024, SuperNation brought in $33.0 million. That's nearly 10% of DoubleDown's total revenue. So it's not just some science experiment. It's a legitimate second revenue stream.
Okay, so that's the good news part of the report. Now we have to get to the bad news. And honestly, bad news feels like a huge understatement. We need to talk about Washington State.
The elephant in the room. Or maybe the great white shark circling the boat.
I was reading the legal proceedings section, and usually this stuff is so dry, you know, slip and fall, lawsuits, patent trolls. But this is existential. Washington State seems determined to destroy the social casino business model.
Washington is ground zero. And to understand why, you have to look at their specific gambling laws. Most states define gambling as risking something of value for a chance to win something of value. The argument has always been, well, virtual chips have no value because you can't cash them out, therefore it's not gambling.
But Washington sees it differently.
Correct. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in the Big Fish case that virtual chips are a thing of value because they extend your gameplay. If you run out of chips, you have to stop playing. Therefore, chips equal entertainment time, which equals value.
And DoubleDown has already paid the price for this. They settled that Benson class action lawsuit back in 2022.
And that was not a slap on the wrist. They paid $145 million into a settlement fund, with DoubleDown's share being over $95 million. They paid that to make the problem go away.
But here is the kicker, and this is what makes the 2024 report so explosive. The problem didn't go away, it just mutated.
It escalated from civil lawsuits,
Okay.
angry players wanting their money back to direct government intervention.
The report details a civil investigative demand, or CID, served by the Washington State Attorney General in August 2024.
Which is huge. An AG investigation isn't just about money, it's about consumer protection and unfair or deceptive acts. They are looking under the hood of the entire business.
But then, it gets even worse. January 2025, the Washington State Gambling Commission, the WSGC, issues a public memo. And I want to read the phrasing here because it's just chilling for the industry. They asserted that games of chance involving wagers of virtual currency likely constitute illegal gambling.
Likely constitute illegal gambling. That is the regulator effectively saying, we think what you are doing is a crime. Not just a civil wrong, but a violation of actual gambling acts.
And this brings us right back to the domino effect. We talked about Pillar 3 IGT, the company that provides the authentic slots. They saw this memo and they completely panicked.
Panic is the right word. In March 2025, so very recently, IGT sent a letter to DoubleDown purporting to terminate their license agreement immediately.
I want to pause on the logistics of this. This isn't just IGT saying, hey, don't use our games in Washington.
No, that would have been the measured response. IGT demanded that DoubleDown stop distributing their games nationwide.
Nationwide. So because a regulator in Olympia, Washington wrote a memo, a player in Florida or New York might lose access to Cleopatra.
That is IGT's position. They are a massive regulated entity. They have licenses in Nevada, New Jersey, all over the world. They cannot afford to be associated with illegal gambling in any jurisdiction. If Washington says this is illegal, IGT has to cut the cord to protect their own main business. It's self-preservation.
But for DoubleDown, if they lose IGT, they lose that Vegas authenticity. The app just becomes generic.
It rips the heart out of their content strategy. And just think about the technical nightmare. You have to patch the app to remove the most popular games. Users log in, their favorite slot is gone. What do? They churn. They leave.
And DoubleDown is fighting this, obviously.
They have to. They are claiming IGT has no legal basis to terminate. They're arguing that the WSGC memo is just an opinion, not a court ruling. But they are in a real bind. They're fighting the government on one side and their most critical partner on the other.
It makes that SuperNation acquisition look less like a growth strategy and more like a survival strategy.
Absolutely. If the U.S. market collapses, or if they're forced to fundamentally change the game mechanics to satisfy Washington, they need that European revenue. In Europe, the rules are clear. You pay your taxes, you follow the regulations, you operate. In the West, they're operating in this legal gray zone that is rapidly turning black.
It's a fascinating contrast. In Europe, they are running a real gambling site, and it's perfectly safe legally. In the U.S., they are running a fake gambling site, and they are under federal investigation.
It's the paradox of the law. And it brings up a really difficult question for the industry. If you strip away the chance to win money, are slot machines still entertainment?
Well, DoubleDown would say yes. Their revenue certainly says yes. People clearly enjoy the dopamine hit of the lights and sounds, even without the payout.
But the regulators are starting to ask, is that dopamine hit predatory? If you are using casino math to extract thousands of dollars from a whale who gets nothing tangible in return, is that a business or is that exploitation?
And that's what the Washington Attorney General is trying to decide right now.
The stakes are just incredibly high. If Washington wins, or if IGT successfully walks away, it sets a precedent. Other states could follow Washington's lead. Other content partners could follow IGT.
So, to wrap this all up, we have a company that is financially robust. Generating incredible cash flow from a very loyal user base. But legally, they're walking a tightrope in a hurricane.
That is the perfect summary. They're racing to diversify into Europe before the ground completely collapses beneath them in the U.S.
It really forces you to rethink what value even means in the digital age.
It does.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you listening. We tend to think of the law as being black and white. Gambling is illegal, gaming is legal, but DoubleDown is living in the blur. If you put $100 into a machine and you get hours of entertainment but $0 back, did you gamble? Or did you just buy a very expensive ticket to a show?
For the player, it might be a show. But for DoubleDown, the answer to that question is worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
And we will be watching very closely to see how the courts answer it. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you on this one.